I've been playing the game that most people have been talking about for the last 2 weeks. So I've had plenty of time to play and very much enjoy CLAIR OBSCUR Expedition 33. It is a great game that I've enjoyed a lot of, and it's essentially, I guess, a JRPG inspired game, fantasy adventure from first-time devs Sandfall Interactive. They're a medium team, and this is their first game, and it is very, very successful thus far. I guess technically it's an FRPG. It's a French role-playing game because they are a French team. Yeah. So I'm going to coin that as my new phrase.
Oh mon dieu.
So yeah, I heard a lot of chatter about this game, and people have already put it up as a front runner for Game of the Year, and I'll be honest, I kind of agree. I'm very much enjoying the 9 to 12 hours I've been playing. This game is set in a sort of dreamlike fantasy world where every year a villain known as the Paintress reduces a number on a giant distant monolith that indicates the oldest age that everyone can live to, and in doing so kills everyone of that age and above. It is up to 33, like the game's title implies, and now when she does so, an expedition sets off from the mainland across the sea to try and defeat her, and they then ultimately fail, and it goes on year after year as that number counts down. So it's a really cool high fantasy, high concept story. You are in control of the latest party of beautiful, whimsical, Frenchy friends who send themselves off across the sea to journey deeper into this very surreal and absolutely stunning world. So as I said, what I think really works is the world building in this game. This is such a beautiful game. From the characters, the voice acting, the visuals, they're all breathtaking. This whole thing is just an absolute feast for the senses. It's an incredibly beautiful game, and it shows off these, in particular in the environments of the game, particularly this sort of high fantasy, cool surrealness. The skyboxes are all beautifully detailed. Like, every element of these worlds is really, really detailed. And they do it in a kind of high fantasy, weird way that I think only the French really know how. It's kind of like, it's obscure, like the name title implies, but it's like in a kind of refreshing way that JRPGs are often quite strange and foreign in a really exciting way, but they're kind of odd. This has that same element of odd and strange, but with a kind of French twist to it, and
like French art house vibe.
French art house kind of thing. Yeah, it's wonderful, and I'm like genuinely invested in the story and the characters' motivations. There's a lot of somber melancholy and woe, and it's all quite sad, but it's all performed really beautifully, and it does resonate with you, and you want to see them succeed. These characters, you genuinely fall in love with them, especially once you meet all the characters and you get into some of the like light, silly, fun writing. Like, for all the somberness there is some real moments of brevity and lightness that just make it feel like a really human adventure. The other big thing that the game does really, really well is the combat. It's turn-based combat, and I forgot how much I enjoy turn-based combat as a play style. My days playing Persona, but also things like Fire Emblem is kind of that turn-based style. I just forget how satisfying it is as a game style. Here, it's your traditional sort of party of 3. You've got your, slick menus, characters mix between basic attacks and special attacks. You spend action points, you build them up. You've got these moves, you can use items between your party, that sort of thing. What's different here, or what they add to the combat here, is a series of quick time events and a lot of button presses for basically everything in the game. So your basic attack your special attacks have a button to sort of heighten the damage you'll give. There's a button for parry, a button for dodge, a button for jump. So it takes the sort of passive systems of turn-based combat and does add an element of interactiveness, which keeps you playing, which keeps you on your toes the whole time it's happening. And it's a really satisfying way to make the combat feel reactive rather than just sort of sleepwalk through it and sit back and just select from menus and that kind of thing. So that's fantastic. What I don't connect with as much is the fact that these systems that are in place are different for every character. So I won't go into detail because it is far too complicated, but essentially every character in your party has their own unique system of like how they power up over the battle, the currency they spend to use their moves, a randomizer. They're all unique and they're all really interesting, but they're all completely different, and you have to relearn a new system every time you get a new member to your party. And I think it's their way of kind of going around, instead of having class systems like healers and damage dealers and that kind of stuff, it's more to do with learn that character's unique system and do you gel with it and do you like that character. It's great, it's just complicated, and it's all heavy loaded quite early in the game, and you mix that with all the perks in the game, all the stats, all the weapon elements, all that kind of stuff, and it can get to a point, like a lot of, turn-based JRPGs, it's like a lot of information, a lot of different build types, and you can just get a little bit overwhelmed, especially when you've got a story like this that you really just want to plow on with and, see where these characters go. So I found that a little bit overwhelming. At the same time, I do think that is there for people who love that in these games and love that in these style of games, and I can see it as a really nice incentive to come back and play as different party members, because obviously there's more than just the 3. You can see switching out here as you play along. There's definitely the 3 that I have, and I've just stuck with them, and I really like that 3. And there is New Game Plus, so I can see it as an incentive to come back, and I think a lot of people are doing that because people j'adore this game. They are absolutely in love with it, and I am as well. And whether or not I New Game Plus it, I'm not sure, but I'm definitely getting to the end because I'm like enthralled by how this is going to end as a narrative, and I'm really, really loving it. And yeah, I know Josh is playing it as well, and Josh, you finished it, I believe.
Yeah, I'm playing New Game Plus at the moment.
There you go. And
it is very, very good.
It is deserving of all the positivity it's receiving at the moment, and I would say it is just so strange bouncing between how much I love the look of this game and I'm just playing it as an aesthetics thing. I'm just enjoying the journey and the visuals, and then I'm getting into this like serious, very strategic combat at the same time. They kind of feel at odds with each other, but they just turn out to complement each other really, really well. So I've got very little bad to say about this. I love it.
The thing that I've only heard good things about this game. The question that I have based on what you've just described is like, this is a very narrative-heavy game, and there's a cast of characters. When you're only roaming around with 3, are you missing out on some characters being involved in the story?
No.
Like, I would feel like I would have FOMO over that. I'd be like, I need to bring that person and that person because I want their perspective on this part of the story.
Totally.
But
It's very like Baldur's Gate 3. It's like, I didn't bring this person along, so entire part of their story's gone.
That's a good comparison. No, it's not that in the sense that it's just the 3 you have for your battles and for the combat.
Okay.
You are traveling as that full group the whole time. All the cutscenes that are there involve everyone, and so it is the same narrative story that everyone's going to get.
Yep.
They do play around with who's in the party in the story, so that might limit who you can play with from time to time.
Yep.
But for the majority of it, it is that whole group of people. You get to see that when there are a lot of cutscenes. The game is quite linear in the sense of you move through those big free roaming areas you saw earlier on, but they're really just corridors into these main sections. And once you're in them, you are running kind of more to scale on foot, and you'll see like combat that you can engage or not engage with as you move through kind of corridors to get to the next cutscene. Right. So it's surprisingly, it feels a lot more open than it actually is, and that's quite refreshing. It's nice to think you're in a big open world, but know you're on a channeled path kind of thing. And then the other thing you can do in the open world is go to these, you can go to camps, and you can then use that to chat with everyone in the party, and there's optional sort of character and story progression. So you can put more time into like relationships between the characters, romancing, that kind of thing. But I would say there's more than enough story just playing it for the main actual narrative. Everything else is just a bonus.
Who are you
That's what I was going to say. Is that there is a camp system that is very much it is a lot like BG3. I found it much more like Mass Effect, Pete. It's like you go back to the ship and you want to talk to everyone and see if there's new dialogue options yet. Like it's that sort of a vibe.
Okay, yeah, cool.
And it doesn't really advance time. Like time is not really a factor here. Yeah. But in terms of like a day-night cycle or anything like that.
Or you hit a point in the game that it goes, hey, you need this story beat to happen, so you go to camp.
It will force you back to camp. But you can choose to go back there every now and then too.
Yeah, right. And presumably, like, it's not as dire as Mass Effect or Baldur's Gate, where if you miss some part of some interaction with some character, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't feel like this game is a multiple endings kind of thing.
Look, there might be. I haven't looked into that, Josh.
Okay.
You'd probably know. But in terms of who's around, who lives, who dies, who's in sections, the whole game is about death. You were surrounded by death the whole way, so that doesn't come as a big surprise. But no, those story beats are there, I believe, in the main narrative for everyone. As people saw on the stream I did on Monday the other week, it opens with a pretty heart-wrenching scene, and they set the tone for like death and somberness. And so, yeah, it is like that's what's quite compelling, is that it doesn't feel like they're holding back any punches. And maybe that's the French storytelling style, but they are just like very happy to make this feel very emotive, and far more than any other sort of like party-based adventuring game I've played, maybe next to Baldur's Gate kind of thing. I feel very connected to all these guys. You asked me who I was horny for? Everyone but the 16-year-old. Who's your
That's
sister?
good.
But everyone in the game is...
You mean everyone except?
Yeah, that was a weird way to phrase that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool,
But-
cool. But the 16-year-old.
Everyone in this game is beautiful and has luscious hair and perfect teeth and feet. Actually, the character I enjoy playing as the most is Lune, I think, who is the one without shoes. But that's because when you're roaming in the open world, the
see her
sprint
feet.
button is just she glides.
Yeah.
And it is the most satisfying way to move around an open world. Like everyone else
That's
is,
her. That's my wife.
and you switch to her and she just goes, woo, and it's like
Yeah,
this
it's because
is.
she hasn't got any shoes on.
Exactly,
It hurt
yeah,
if
it
she
would
Her
sensible.
little feeties.
Yeah.
She glides around like that, but she's my most powerful, and she's also a healer. So yeah, I've definitely got my little party set up. But I'm
I
interested
like
to
that
see.
big fucker.
This is this character
That's
is
Eskia.
Eskia is your transport that you meet, and so
He's
he
the
lets
best.
you move faster around the open world, which feels a little Ni no Kuni style. You move into those big hub areas where everything's kind of shrunk, but
Everything's
it's a
small.
neat effect. And there's just a lot to like in this game. And I will say the comedy in it is great. You might have seen on
Yeah, I've
social
seen some
media
great
and stuff.
bits, yeah.
There are some really. There's some great overlapping dialogue. Like they enjoy the human nature of back and forth that I don't often see because video games are so stunted in their just So here there are some wonderful moments. What's the character's name? Monaco or Monaco or whatever is
Monaco.
character of the year. Like when you
Wow.
meet him, fucking wild. So
Yeah,
yeah,
amazing.
it is deserved of all the praise it's getting. It's good fun.